financial problems, elder law, criminal law, tax problems, business matters, divorce, personal injury, bankruptcy, your life, your reality. Life is complicated. There is the law and there is reality. Welcome to Law and Reality, sponsored by THAV GROSS. Now here's your host, Ken Gross.
Welcome to this segment of Law and Reality. Today's topic is estate questions, those that apply when we live long enough. And with all due hope and perseverance, let's hope that that applies to all of us.
Amen.
Good morning, Jeffrey Kirshner.
Good morning.
Welcome back to the show. We have not seen you in a while.
I haven't been seen in a while, but it's great to be here, and it's great to be alive.
Absolutely. Jim Simasco.
Happy to be here as always. We have a saying, who wants to live to 100? Everyone who's 99.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Brian Small, I know I tricked you again.
You did. It's all right,
You
though.
had that look of like you were about to talk, and then you got shut down.
Well, good
Kind
morning.
of like an EV plant.
An EV plant. Yeah. Okay. That's a subject for another day, and the trauma that it'll cause to the economy, the fact that nobody's going to be buying electric cars anymore because of the lack of incentives.
I mean, the whole thing is weird, and I don't want to move into that thing. But the whole thing on the EVs is we've seen the cycle before. Everyone seems to forget when all of a sudden something happens and gas goes way up. All of a sudden the demands for EVs skyrockets, and everybody says that's the way we want to go. And then when we start going that way, the cost of gas goes down, and then everyone says, "Why do we need this? Let's go back to our gas cars." I mean, this has been going on for 30 years now, and the EVs are better now, but it's still that mentality. But anyway, questions will we live long enough? First of all, if we live long enough, hopefully we have succeeded in the 3-point retirement plan. We own our house free and clear, zero debt, we have some cash in the bank. And at that point, we have estate planning questions and issues. So on that framework, questions for you.
Well, I got one before we start in the questions list. So many people contact me and say, "Tell me about estate taxes. Do I pay them? Don't I pay them? When do they get paid? Can I give my stuff away while I'm alive? Does it impact my estate?" So the first question that gets answered is, if you're worth more than approximately $14.1 million each in a married couple, your estate needs to have tax planning. If you're worth less than $14.1 million each, there is no estate tax per se. So for the majority of us, we don't have to worry about it, which is different than the way it used to be, because tax planning had to be done when I started.
600,000?
It was when I started
in the 70s.
It was still 600,000
Before that, it was 250.
in the early 80s and late 80s. So
And tax was at 55%.
yep. So the people that really have to worry about it, I think those are the people that own all those sports teams.
In fact, back in those days when it was 600, the other important factor that went into that was proceeds from life insurance were part of that gross estate. So if you had a $250,000 life insurance policy, which was a big policy back then, not anymore, and other assets, it was very easy to jump over 600 per spouse at that time because of the insurance. Now, 14.1 million. If you're carrying an $8 million insurance policy, you still can have $6 million of other assets. So,
It really killed a lot of the American farmers, because they were land rich and cash poor. They died, they'd have to sell the farm off just to pay the taxes.
kind of like the movie Secretariat.
Yeah.
Well, it's the
At the
same
time.
Or
comment.
Yellowstone.
Yeah.
The people that own sports teams, I mean, this is a very limited number, but those teams are worth hundreds of millions to billions of dollars. when they die, how does that happen? I mean, you do see the sale of sports teams, but usually it's covered by insurances and things like that.
That's why the super rich, they put their money into foundations and let the kids take care of the
Run the
foundation.
foundation.
The
Yeah.
Clinton Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It's because they don't want to pay the 40% tax.
So are you working for the small foundation?
I only wish.
I'm just glad they have that 0.1 buffer. I'm at 14. I'm
I just-
avoiding
you
that
just-
0.1.
Well, it's just an adjustment
No.
based on inflation.
Just downgrade your investments.
But
Don't go over.
the
Or spend
point,
more.
remember the government doesn't give up anything. So when they changed the structure of estate tax to raised it from 6 million to 13 million and now 12.6 million, now it's up to 14.1. They really just moved the deck chairs on the Titanic, because what they did was, now instead of being able to inherit an IRA or a 401k from your parents and being able to stretch that out over the rest of your life and pay the taxes in very small increments, now you have to take that money out over 10 years. So when you inherit an IRA or a 401k from your parents, in all likelihood, you're in your 50s, just from a statistical standpoint. You're still working and you're at the highest earning capacity you usually are in your career. So now you're paying, when you have to pull that money out over 10 years, you're paying income tax at the highest possible rate you humanly can, instead of the lowest possible
Well, at
rate.
the highest rate that you would have had to have paid.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you're in the highest possible
Right.
bracket.
So that, but the point is that the
But I don't know
government's
if I
getting
agree
their
with
money
the
back.
50s. Are you sure on the 50s? Because usually it's both parents have to have been gone.
Right. And so
before
if the
you're
average
inheriting.
person lives to be 85 to 86 and you're 25 years older than your kid, or 30 years
you're
older,
pushing
you're in your
60.
but you're in your 50s, you're still not retired. So
I thought you were retiring at 55.
I really, because I turned 58 very shortly.
We tell a
Well,
lot of our
then you
clients.
just have to read between the lines then.
We tell a lot of our clients to pull money out of their IRAs. Even if they don't need it because they're at the 12% tax bracket.
So that's
Yeah,
a
if you're at the
strategy
low-
that makes
if you're
sense.
at the low bracket, pay the tax and it benefits the children down the road.
Let the kids inherit it after tax.
All right, so I'm going to start throwing out questions to you. The first question, which we will cover after the break, is dealing with the new spouse.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP.
If your loved one is struggling with age-related issues, let our family help your family. Call Samasco Law now. We're family-owned and growing. Meet Joe Frizard and Kelsey Samasco, our newest superstars. We'll handle your issues with care, compassion, and dedication. At Samasco Law, we'll leave no stone unturned until your family is protected for the long term. We'll walk together. That's what families do. Samasco Law. Protect what matters.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV GROSS specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV GROSS.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirschner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
All right, so here's the question. How do I keep my dad's new wife from getting my inheritance? What do I say to Dad? What needs to be done?
Well, it's funny. There's this question, which I came up with, was directly related to a client calling and saying, my dad just got remarried and he's got property. He wants to make sure it goes to us, and she's got property. He wants to make sure it goes to her kids. But, you know, this is early in the marriage. What happens if they're married 20 years?
I lived through this problem when I was 12 years old. My grandmother passed away. My grandfather remarried. He remarried Rose. We've done this story before. Of course, my mother did not like Rose. My aunt did not like Rose. And therefore, all the grandchildren were ordered to not like Rose as well. So nobody liked Rose. Well, shortly after they got married, my grandfather got cancer. So he was ill. Rose was worried about Rose, and Rose talked my grandfather into signing over all of his CDs to her before he passed away, unbeknownst to my parents. And my grandfather passes away, all the CDs went to Rose. 3 months later, Rose dies. Rose's assets, including my grandfather's CDs, all went to who?
Rose's family.
Rose's children. And my parents were annoyed at that and wanted to know what they could do. And I remembered at 12 years old hearing my father say, the lawyer says there's nothing we can do.
The lawyer was right.
The lawyer was right. But here's the thing. That's the outcome if nothing's done. The question is what can you do?
Yeah, what should my mom have said to her dad?
Well, the first...
Live in sin.
You don't
get married, okay, but that was
Don't
a
get
different
married,
time. Today,
yeah.
that's much
Well,
more
it's-
acceptable.
I think knowing the facts now with hindsight in that particular case, she should have said, she can't cook.
Well, it's always interesting, though, when you come up with these issues, because then comes up the topic of a prenuptial agreement. An agreement that talks about what's going to happen with the property.
So that's one.
So that's an interesting topic, though, because you love this woman, yet at the same time, you come up with this asset issue that, well, I don't want you to, I love you, but not all my assets. And that's,
there is a
uncomfortableness.
way to do it. You can structure it so that your assets that you want to make sure go to your children go into a trust and are available to your spouse under certain circumstances. Support or maintenance, and with limiting their ability to invade the corpus of the money. You can do that through having someone else control the trust, which that's an issue, right? Because
It's a very tough issue because
Delicate.
who do you pick? You know, do you pick your kid? Do you pick one of her kids? Each
Trustee
one.
becomes a
Trustees,
problem.
yeah.
And there's another problem with that. Let's just take my grandfather's scenario. Okay, let's say he did that. But all of a sudden Rose comes to him and says, well, what if, if you die, no one's going to take care of me? And grandfather says, what if he then took the CDs out of the trust and signed them over to her while he's alive and he's mentally competent?
He always
Same
has
problem.
that right. He always has that right.
of course, but
Prenup is different, but you can also rip up the prenup. So ultimately you can't totally protect that unless you can put the assets into an irrevocable trust.
Right, but when you do that, the person gives up control of the assets themselves, and the generation before all of us was very reluctant to give up control of everything that they spent their whole lives working on.
Absolutely.
Working for.
But it's so start off with, when you remarry somebody, you're trying to
if you
support.
remarry somebody, are you saying you're marrying
No,
the
you're
same
getting
person
married for a second
time?
time. Sorry, and you want to make you're sharing your love and your life with that person, but you also have to protect your children. Now there are ways to do it. You could carry life insurance that goes for the benefit of your children.
Except
you
you
could
may
carry
not be
life
able to-
insurance.
You may not be able to buy life insurance
Right.
at the point where you're entering
Or
into a second
again,
marriage.
you carve out and put the money aside for in the trust.
Yeah, my example would be the extreme. Let's say you created the trust, you provided that upon your death the assets are available to the spouse, and it could be your second spouse, or it actually could be your first spouse. If you want to protect those assets for your children, you leave the assets to your spouse with the right to use the money for reasonable support and maintenance. As long as you don't pull the money back out of the trust and then give it away before you die while you're competent, the plan that works and accomplishes that result. One of the interesting things is we started the show off talking about the tax laws and estate planning back when the estates were 600,000 cap on taxable events. Well, in those days, you automatically had that type of an estate plan. What did we call it? The AB trust.
Absolutely.
We would fund the trust, all of your assets up to the exemption amount, into a trust that was a family trust that the surviving spouse had the right to invade, had the right to the income, had the right to invade for reasonable support and maintenance, and had what we used to call a 5 and 5 power, 5% right to invade the principal. And then upon death, it went to the children. You needed to do that so that that wouldn't be counted in your estate from the standpoint of the taxable event. But now we don't need to do that. I sometimes still use the old AB trust to accomplish that result.
Right. And sometimes, you can restrict what happens to assets in the trust. Like you can put a house in the trust and say, the house is owned by my trust and it shall pass to my children. The spouse gets the right to utilize the house for the entirety of her life, that kind of thing. And there's ways to manipulate everything, and it just comes down to there has to be a certain level of trust when you're doing a trust. And there has to be a certain level of understanding between the parties that people need to protect their children at the same
And we
time.
want the trust to be flexible because the tax laws could change.
And so can intentions. Let's take a break and we'll go on to some more questions.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV GROSS.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirschner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP.
Time for announcements. I want to announce THAV GROSS has opened a new office downriver in the Horizon building on Eureka Road. So now we're in Flint, downriver, and also our home office in Bingham Farms. Remember, you can always come in for a free consultation. You can do it by Zoom conference, in the office, any way that works best for you. Just call 888-235-HELP or go to the website, thavgross.com, to sign up. Debt issues, tax issues, estate planning issues, business law issues, elder law issues with Pat or Kelsey, disability issues with Jeff Kirschner. Again, sign up at lawandreality.com or thavgross.com or just call 888-235-HELP. Also, if you go to the website, you'll see there's free reports. Resolving Tax Problems, The Real Solutions by Jeff Linden and myself. Bankruptcy, Is It Right for Me by Brian Small. How to Save Your Home from Foreclosure. Business Formations, Loans and Grants for Small Businesses in Detroit and Michigan. And The Retiree's Guide to Social Security by Pat Simasko. I want to thank our sponsors, THAV Gross, Simasko Law, Kirshner Law. Now back to the show.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
The doctors ask if Dad's affairs are in order. Did Dad ever talk to you about what we should do in a situation like this?
Not a word.
What should we do?
We should have called Simasko.
Don't wait. All it takes is a quick call to Simasko Law or go online and fill out a request. We can get your needs and wishes set in stone so your family doesn't have to play a guessing game when the chips are down. Protect what matters. For power of attorney, call Simasko Law today.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV Gross specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
All right, before we move on, one thing we're talking about the estate planning. One of the key things that is important there that people need to, I think everybody needs to realize, is the role of the estate planning attorney. Our job is to vet those issues with you, to make you aware of the issue, to think about it when we do an estate plan, so that you have the opportunity to think about it and employ and make sure you have provisions in the estate plan that address it. You don't want to just walk into the attorney's office and say, I need an estate plan, and he says, okay, what's your name, what's your children's name, what ages do you want them to get the money, and then all of a sudden he comes back and says, sign the plan, here it is. You need to have a discussion about those things, and for sure, if it's your second marriage, or you're thinking about a second marriage and those things, you should raise them with your estate planner as well.
You know, and it's not just estate planning, it's when they get married, you know, what ifs? You always ask what ifs, what are your options? You know, so the client can make an informed decision.
Right, and including things like, my kid is in debt up to their eyeballs. I don't want my money going to pay their Visa and MasterCard bill. There's options to deal with all of that in estate planning.
Absolutely. So let me get a completely different topic. I own firearms. Do I need a gun trust?
Maybe.
Why would I need one?
So,
Because firearms have to be licensed, especially pistols. And with the ownership of a firearm comes liability. You want to make sure your firearm doesn't get in the wrong hands. We want to make sure that there's no problems for the children having an unlicensed gun.
So how does a gun trust work?
So also, gun trust, there's certain types of guns and certain types of things like silencers, suppressors, short barrel shotguns, machine guns, semi-automatic rifles.
I'm going to slide over here because Brian sounds like he knows a
No,
lot
that
about
have
guns.
that have to be held by a gun trust to be passed on to.
Well, how does a gun trust work?
And different states have different laws, by the way. You should check with the sheriff's department.
Wait, what is a gun trust?
It is a method by which you put your firearms
You
into
die
a trust.
in the trust, or
Well-
you put the gun in the trust while you're living?
You do, and the reason for that is just,
Is it a box?
so to speak.
Okay.
One of the reasons you do that is if you want to let somebody else use your firearm, you can. It allows for that use on a gun range and things like that, which otherwise they can't do. There's so many restrictions, especially in Michigan, since we changed the firearm laws recently in the last 2 years. There's a lot of restrictions on using firearms, and just having the ability to pass it on to, it's owned by the trust, so therefore if the person you're giving it to isn't entitled to own a firearm, it doesn't cause them a problem.
But they would then, after you pass away, they would have to become licensed in order to
Eventually,
use
yes.
it.
So that's, I was going to say, what
have
happened?
to be the weapon registered.
So my question just was, let's assume I have a gun. I don't have this trust. I pass away. What happens to my gun?
Well, it depends. If it was required to be in an NFA gun trust, your estate's going to have some problems getting rid of it. You see a lot of people taking firearms to the police department saying, "Please destroy them." And some of these guns are worth a lot of money. I have a client that just has a shotgun that's worth $70,000. I was like, I don't even understand how a shotgun be worth $70,000, but
Is it based on who you shot?
possibly. But anyway, I mean, the thing to take away from this, because we've got a lot of other questions to talk about, includes the fact that if you have firearms, you should consider putting them in a gun trust.
Okay.
And pistols are treated differently than long guns because they can be potentially so dangerous and misused.
Good to know. So, this is one we've talked about before, but it's still worth covering because it's such a big topic and so often a problem. Should I put my child on my deed for estate planning purposes?
Never.
Never.
I agree.
And the reason is really simple. When you put your child on your deed, what you've done is you've given away a portion of your home, and you don't know if that child has debt problems, is going to restrict you from selling that property at a later date. Also, it causes tax problems down the road because you've given it to them while you are living, so therefore they may be subject to capital gains tax that they wouldn't otherwise be subject to on a stepped-up basis if you
There's
inherit
all
the
these
property.
reasons not to do it. Why does it happen so frequently?
Because
In the old days, people did it that way. The old farmers would put their kids' names on the deeds, and it really comes back to haunt them in a lot of instances.
I think it's the same way with bank accounts, things
I
of
was
that
just
nature too. The mother says, "Well, I'm just going to put my child to my child. I want them to have it anyway. So if something happens to me."
So what
they have
about
access."
that? Because you still see that.
again, that's quote unquote the
Oh.
poor man's will.
Because
and
you
it's
can
the wrong
actually
way
do
to do
you
everything.
can do TODs on your bank accounts, transfer on death, which at least that doesn't vest. A transfer on death designation that says when I die, I leave what's left in the bank account to spouse or to child.
And you can do the same thing with your real property too,
With
in a
a-
ladybird deed.
Yeah, so it's same. So you can accomplish that goal the right way.
The issue with putting kids on the deeds is, if they get filed divorce, if they file bankruptcy, if they get sued, the property's at risk.
Yeah, the kid gets divorced, and the spouse says, "Well, I have a 1/2 interest in your 1/2 interest in mom and dad's house."
Well, the other thing I want to throw out there is that when you put the kid's name on it, they pick up your liability too. You put me on your house, and you get sued.
All the reasons not to do it. That's a wrap. Have a great week. We'll be back next week with Law and Reality.